Ms. Kathy Peace of Skillsline joins us today from the St. Louis area. Kathy runs Skillsline's programs and partnerships to develop professional learning, workshops, and support materials. She designs programs for workforce and implements them right along with our partners. Kathy's background is squarely in education, having been a teacher, a principal, and finally as the chief academic officer for a large school district outside of Chicago. Kathy's a lifelong learner, educator, and has a passion for career-connected education. Welcome, Kathy. We're very excited that you're here today.
Thanks, Chris. I'm happy to be here.
So, Kathy, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and how you became involved in education and what drives your passion for helping youth?
Sure. So I have been a lifelong educator. I knew that was what I wanted to do my sophomore year of college. I had started out in something else and found that to be boring, was volunteering at a daycare center and decided I want to be with kids. So that's been my lifelong career. I started as a second grade teacher in a bilingual classroom and moved then through all kinds of grade levels and then to all different roles in quasi-administration, administration, some special education background, curriculum work, and then ended my career as the chief academic officer, as you said. The reason I started working for Skillsline is because I had been, my passion was for preparing kids for whatever they decided to do with their future. Part of that is the academic piece, but a greater part of that is the skills that they need in order to build relationships and be with people. I found early on in my own career that building relationships was the key to moving and having a happy work-life balance, wanting to go to work every day, wanting to see kids, wanting to see my colleagues, connecting with them. In fact, some of the best ideas I ever got for home and for work were from colleagues in schools and parents that I interacted with. And so I know that's important for kids as well. As a principal, an elementary principal, I felt like we expected kids to have those skills and then provided consequences when they didn't have them. And so as a school, we decided that it was time to teach them. And so as I moved through my career, I held on to that we needed to teach the kids the skills we expected them to have and not just assume that they had acquired them as we had. And so when I retired from school district, from public education, I connected with Chris as a part of Skillsline, and I wanted to be a part of actually teaching those skills in a easy to implement fashion, taking what I knew about teachers and what I knew about learners and bring it forth so that we could provide them with the support and the tools that they needed to get that done.
That's awesome. So you've had a lot of different roles within the education system. Can you tell us what your favorite one was?
Yes. So I kept moving and decided, the next role would be I'd have greater impact, or the next role I could get more things done. But what I found over the course of my career was that the role that I felt the most productive and got the most done and enjoyed the most was as an elementary principal. I got to work with teachers. I got to work with students. I got to work with parents in the community. I got to work with administration. I got to work with curriculum. I got to help teachers figure out how to best meet the needs of students, how to implement new strategies, new initiatives. And the best part of it was no matter what was going on in the day, no matter what meeting we had before school, when those kids came to school, the whole building changed. And we were focusing on them. They did not care how anything else went that day. They wanted us to focus on them. And that was probably the most rewarding thing that I was a part of.
Oh, that's awesome. So rapid fire, and you touched on this before, but can you talk to us about how and why you decided to work with Skillsline?
Sure. So I had spent, especially the last 4 years of my career, working on career education and looking at how do we help our students, how do we prepare them so whatever they choose to do, whether it be college, whether it be right into the workforce, whatever they choose to do, we wanted to prepare them for what came next. And part of that was helping them understand not only what careers were out there for them, because most students only know what their families do. And then the big ones, NBA star, lawyer and doctor. So we wanted to give them a broad background of what opportunities were available to them. But we also wanted them to get some experience and understand what skills they needed in order to be successful in what they chose. And so when I retired, I had connected with Skillsline and just saw how it really hit those skills in a nice, concise way in order for any teacher to be able to pick it up and implement it. And that is the key to it, because these skills are sometimes, hard to find time for. They're hard to find strategies for teaching them. And a lot of teachers don't know that they're capable of teaching them. So the thing that attracted me most to Skillsline was the content was solid and applicable, and I felt like could be beneficial to the learners. But at the same time, it was in little bite-sized chunks that anybody could pick up and have time for, make time for, 10-minute lessons. And then we spent a lot of time then working on how to have the conversations after that. So it hit both content and both relationship, which I think are two key components to any skill development, but especially for the human skills.
That's awesome. I was curious, as you were talking, you mentioned teaching these skills, and that you consciously, even before Skillsline, decided to teach these skills. What does that mean?
So I'll give you a really simple example. As an elementary principal, I'm walking through the hallways and I'm saying hello to students, and there were many of them that didn't say hello back or didn't say good morning back. And at first that bothered me. And then I realized that they didn't know. They didn't know how to greet. And so we went into the classrooms and we identified the name of it. So we made them aware of the name. This is a greeting. This is how you do it. Let's practice it. And then we're going to expect you to do it. And when you don't, we're going to say, hey, how about that greeting? And so we wanted to build a common understanding of what the vocabulary was so that when we said greeting, every student in our building knew what it was. And we wanted to then talk to them about that and help them to prepare for that. And once they had that, once they had an understanding of what it was, and we helped them, we modeled for them and let them practice doing it, then the building became a greater community because we were all recognizing each other throughout the day. So teaching these skills is more about an awareness of what they are, why they're great, why you need them, and then giving them some examples, talking about it, and then referring back to it.
So you learned some pretty valuable lessons in the elementary school. Now, does that same methodology, do those same lessons apply to adults? Does it apply to high school students? How'd you bring that forward? Does it apply?
I think it does. I think everyone needs to understand, first of all, have an awareness of what these human skills are, how they can be important and help you to be successful, and then be able to practice to do them. I think that happens at elementary school. I think it happens middle, high school, and then for adults, because the reality is we don't ever achieve mastery of these skills. So growth mindset as an elementary school student looks different than it does as a high school student. Also looks different I've been in a career for 5 years now. I want to change and I'm starting fresh again. How do I have a growth mindset and apply that skill as I move forward in my second career? So I think it does apply. I think it needs to be revisited. And I think that building that common vocabulary and having an understanding of what it is helps that.
Yeah, that really stood out to me too, was how you had to explicitly instruct them around what the skill is, and then creating that common understanding and language. So a question for you in your role now at Skillsline: what's your process for working with Skillsline partners?
The first thing is really to have an understanding of what it is that they do. What is their goal? How are they doing it? And to get feeling for the environment in which they're going to do it. So much of providing support is building the same relationship that we're talking about in human skills, is really listening and understanding what it is that they need, and then catering and being flexible with how we present Skillsline, how they use Skillsline, providing them with ideas and things like that to accomplish what they need and what the people within their system need as well. So I start with a discussion. I love to visit the environment and spend some time and have an understanding of where people are, and then create something and talk to them about what works, what doesn't, and then be able to implement it. And then I think the key to that is that once that we start, that relationship doesn't end, that it's ongoing, because just as those skills, we need to adapt and change our skills as we move forward. We also need to be there for them to answer the questions, to problem solve, and to help them adjust the program as needed for how they're implementing it and who they're implementing it with.
That's great. What are some of the key goals and outcomes that Skillsline partners are looking to achieve through their partnership with Skillsline?
I believe a lot of it is environment. Having these skills creates a more positive and inclusive environment for the organization. I also believe that they're looking the same as we are to provide these skills so that everyone can be successful in whatever they choose. It's the world, it changes. There are careers being invented every day. So the learners that they have, or the people within the workforce, this isn't their last stop. It's not typically, I was in education for over 35 years. That's not going to be the same for a lot of our learners and workers in the workforce right now. So what we really want is to be able to provide them with the skills that they can make those changes. They can grow. They can move to whatever they want to do. And I believe that's the vision for most of our partners at this point.
Great. That makes a lot of sense to me too. You recently conducted a workshop about teaching employability skills. What was that?
So it was a great opportunity to work with educators in varying roles and varying districts to talk about what are the employability skills, kind of build a common understanding of those, and then really look at all the different strategies that we can use to teach them. So providing them with not only an opportunity to talk to each other about what they are, but to think about how they could implement it if they went back to school the very next day, to take one of those employability skills and have a plan for implementing it the next day. So really making it easy for them to plan, implement, and really prepare in order to teach, so that it didn't become one more thing, and really look at it as being able to provide it so that it's integrated into what they already do.
Okay. What are key takeaways that teachers and administrators would expect from the Skillsline Teaching Employability Skills Workshop?
Well, I think the greatest piece that I can say from this workshop was the flexibility, and that we wanted to create the workshop so that wherever the district was in their implementation of teaching employability skills, that they could take away something that was useful. So we had teachers say, I'm going to use that strategy. We had teachers say, I have an outline now of how I'm going to implement them. We even had a group of teachers from one district have an idea and make a plan for how the whole school could implement the strategies. So we really wanted to make it and provide a wide variety of things so that they could get what they needed out of the workshop. And I think we accomplished that.
What surprised you when you did the Teaching Employability Skills Workshop recently?
I think that there wasn't really a surprise. What I enjoy the most is listening to the teachers, hearing where they are, the challenges that they have, and the ideas that they have. It's never surprising to me. That is the best place to get ideas, is put a group of teachers together and start talking. They were so open and honest about where they were and the struggles that they were having, that I think, that makes it better for everybody. Everybody seemed to be vulnerable and ready to just want to take something away. So it's never surprising that they have this dedication and this passion for giving students what they need. What always surprises me is their willingness to share that.
Now, you've mentioned vulnerability as in our conversations outside of today. Another of our partners at Batesville High School, the principal there mentioned how teachers become vulnerable with each other. What's the importance of vulnerability in learning human skills?
Well, I think one of the biggest human skills is being able to recognize that we all don't know everything, that no one knows everything. And so I think what happens in the course of a workshop about human skills is that, educators come in thinking they're going to learn how to present this to students. But what also happens, and it happens for me as well in these workshops, is that we start to understand ourselves and our colleagues even more. And that vulnerability comes out when you're talking about a skill of, organization. And as you're talking about that, somebody said, well, I'm not very organized. And those kinds of conversations happen just naturally because in talking about the human skills, we are humans and we can relate to them. The other thing that happens is we share about our families too. Well, so and so doesn't have that skill and things like that. So it just becomes a comfortable and safe place for people to open up and say, I'm not sure that I teach that, or I have students that don't understand that. And that's when the real power comes, is from people saying, I'm not sure how to do it, and somebody else saying, I'm not either, but here's what I've tried.
I understand now what you mean by vulnerability and learning from each other, putting your guard down. That seems like a very powerful skill to have.
Well, because everybody has tried something, they have ideas, and that's where things come. You may not use that idea to the letter, but it sparks another idea for you, because we ask our kids to be vulnerable every day in the classroom. We ask our workers to be vulnerable and to learn and to understand how to work through. It's great because our teachers do it too.
And why do you think it's important for teachers to attend the Teaching Employability Skills Workshop?
I think it's important because so many times we get an initiative, but we don't get the how do we do it. We understand what it is, but we don't get a lot of resources on the how. I think it's important to get the how and to build that toolbox for the how to teach them.
That's great. I love those answers. So, what are key learnings and examples of your work with Skillsline that you'd like to share?
I think the key learnings, for one, I think it has really broadened my view of what's available for learners and the different opportunities there are for learners, as well as meeting new people with similar passions and visions, but implementing in a different way. The other piece that has sparked some things for me within Skillsline is the ease of implementation. I think, after coming off of an implementation of social emotional learning, it's really difficult to bring everybody around to that. And the thing that would have helped is having something like Skillsline, which is quick and easy, and the implementation is right there for you to implement.
How did you design Skillsline to be implemented easily and quickly?
Right. So, throughout, that there's not a lot of time. Throughout my career, teachers don't have a lot of time. Educators don't have a lot of time. And we used to provide them with a new curriculum in a big, thick binder and hand that and say, okay, implement it. And so when I started working with Skillsline, I wanted to squelch that. I knew that it makes it, the implementation of that or the teaching of that, it's a barrier to not have it be quick and easy. So what we did was we created a facilitation guide, which is a one sheet component that teachers can pick up that day and be able to talk about that skill with the students in front of them. So it has an introduction, gives the teacher an understanding of the skill, whether they've gone through it or not, gives them an introduction that they can start a discussion, and then questions that they can ask to initiate discussion with the students. It also provides key concepts and vocabulary. The reason for that is that the major part of learning human skills is the human piece. So Skillsline teaches the skill. The human piece is the discussion that you have with students and the way that you can have that. Our teachers are wonderful at building relationships with students. In order for the students to learn these human skills, we have to use those relationships and provide an opportunity for the teachers to use those relationships to build the skills.
That's awesome. Another question along those lines. How easy is it to implement Skillsline?
Skillsline is very easy. The platform provides the instruction in bite-sized chunks, 10-minute chunks, and then we've provided a facilitation guide that's one sheet that a teacher can pick up that day and be able to have the discussion with the students.
Great. Are there any future plans you'd like to share, or what are you excited about in the future at Skillsline?
So we've talked about, I'm very excited about it. The human skills are wonderful, and I think we have a really solid education piece for that. We're moving now to the career exploration and work life education, which I think is equally as important. So, starting with why is it important to have a work life skills and an understanding of that, moving into career exploration, what's available and who am I? As I look at a career, what are my interests and how are those important to what I intend to do in my future? And then how do we make it happen? So what do you do with that? Now that you know who you are, you know what you're interested in, and you know what's available to you, what do you do? And how do you make it happen?
That sounds like a great tool for students and adult workers. Finally, can you tell us a story of a student or of a teacher that you're excited about through your work at Skillsline?
I've met some great educators through working with Skillsline as well as people within the workforce. And I think two things stand out to me. One is a teacher who took Skillsline and really believed in human skills education and took it and started to run with it and came every week to our support session saying, what do you have next? How can I engage my students? How can I work through this? And I think I was so impressed by the dedication to continuing to grow and to build and to take the risk and move right into it when it first started. And, she's been very successful. I've learned from her and have built a great relationship. I think the other piece is, speaking about workforce, that was not something that I was ever really able to engage in wholly as an educator. But working with workforce development and the impact that these skills can have and understanding that common vocabulary at the company is important too. I think it has been very powerful and has sparked and continued my motivation to continue to adapt and to grow and to work through Skillsline with others.
Well, thank you, Kathy. We appreciate your time today. And several times you mentioned building relationships and enthusiasm and passion. And I think all of us agree here at Skillsline and our partners that your passion, your enthusiasm do a great job in building relationships and help us all move forward. So thanks very much for your time. And we look forward to the next time. Thanks.
Thank you.